We live.
Awesome. Wow, I was about to close all my tabs, which would close the live streaming session. So good thing I didn't do that. Hey everyone, welcome to another stream. This week we're going to be talking about some cool stuff. We got some breaking changes, and we got a lot more to cover. So,
Wait,
Lewis, how you doing today? You excited about the stream?
give me 1 sec. The audio not working. I don't think so. Oh no, it's working. Sorry, my bad.
All good, all
False
good.
alarm. Audio was
Just
didn't working.
give me 1 second so I can load the stream on my phone, and then I can also monitor chat. So if people post stuff, they can.
All right. Okay, should I just start talking about the some of the changes, or do you want to do the intro?
Um, No, all good. So I got the stream here. Um, so yeah, as I said, some cool stuff happening. Um, Specifically, the big theme for this week is Plasmo framework. I think we wanted to, as we build out these 50 extensions, we'll talk more about kind of like what we've been up to there. As we kind of talk more about it, one thing that you'll find is we're making a lot of changes to the framework. Um, when we're working on these extensions, we're basically dog fooding. If you guys don't know the term, it's a very common term in like Silicon Valley and stuff. But the basic idea is you eat your own dog food. So I don't know. I used to know why. Do you know, Louis, why the term is called dog fooding? Like specifically dog food?
Hmm.
I
Actually,
used
I
to
don't.
know
I
this.
don't know. I think it's probably because one of the company that make dog food, right? And if it's not good enough, then eat your own dog food means the food is shitty, but you're willing to eat it. And if it's that good, then other people eat it too.
Okay.
I don't know.
So yeah, basically we're dog fooding by building these 50 extensions, and we're finding a lot of issues. Not like a crazy amount, but definitely some stuff that can be improved. So we made a lot of changes this week, and we're excited to talk about it. So first of all, let's talk about some breaking changes. Louis, you wanna talk a little bit more about this?
Yeah, so there's a slight. We made a slight refactor of the root container. Not a root container of CSUI, by the way. This is the root container for extension pages. And so it appeared that because we try to inject React hard module reloading into the root component, every time that we do a page reloading, the uh, the root component of a page might get remounting, might get rendered again, might get called again, might get mounted again because we didn't encapsulate the whole render kind of render flow inside inside a DOM on element DOM content loaded event. So so we did so basically we grabbed the entire kind of a Plasmo mounting code inside that event for extension pages and
Let's take
renamed.
a look at that.
Okay.
So that one's in here, right?
Yep.
So we're looking for
Yeah, that's one of the instances of that.
right. So you want to just like talk through a little bit, kind of. This was what it was before,
Yeah.
and then this is what it is now. So like now with this context, maybe we can like talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So what happened is with React Refresh and HMR in general, right? React Refresh, every time that it trying to inject the new change of your code, right? It actually will inject several bundle into like your page, right? And one of the bundle it would look for is any bundle related to the HMR changes, including this injected um, entry bundle. The problem is without wrapping it inside the DOM container loaded event, the function root render would be called every time that HMR is initiated, which would actually destroy the root. destroy like destroy the previous root. That's required to keep track of HMR, actually, to keep track of like continuous HMR. So that is why we add we grab it inside the event listener. And secondly, the the root name has been changed to dash dash Plasmo. The idea is to mimicking the dash dash the underscore underscore next in Next.js framework. So we took inspiration from that to do a little bit of name spacing for Plasmo and making it completely clear that this is the Plasmo root for the for extension pages and not any generic root with the not any generic like root ID. Yeah,
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. Like there could be issues, right, where potentially the document might have another element with the same ID, um, but this removes all doubt. So
precisely.
yeah, that's awesome. So that's breaking change. Um,
Hmm. That's
and
breaking
then
chain number one. The
yeah,
second breaking chain is so previously spelled root is mounted directly on the document body, but there's some recent kind of oh, what's up, TD? TD's up. The emoji. Yeah. So previously spelled mount their component. Um, so spell usually recommend. So I would say pre-spell kit, they recommend people mounting it directly on the document body. But now, as Svelte become more and more being used on small pieces, right? Because a lot of time when people are transitioning to a new framework, they actually just want to use it on a small piece of logic, on a smaller piece of component, right? To test out the water. Like Apple, for example, Apple recently deployed one of their websites. I forgot what it was. I think it's iTunes page, one of the iTunes page. But one of the page that Apple recently deployed used Svelte, but only for a subset of the page. And so it's very important for them to load it, um, into a target on the page. And I think this practice is going to be used more and more. And people would likely use more. Hey, what's up?
what's up,
Watcher from
guys?
TD. Yeah,
Also, what's up, Busking? What's up, BDAO? How you guys doing? We're just talking about Svelte.
nice. That was morning to you too. But yeah, anyway, we're talking about like the document body. Um, so nowadays, Svelte is recommending more and more mounting into. It's okay now to mount into any target as needed. And because there's going to be a new feature in Spell for Portal. Portal is a feature in React nowadays that you can we can actually use. Uh, but Spell is slowly adopting it. Spell slowly kept implementing it on their side. But Portal is basically a way to abstract way to shadow DOM API actually. Yeah, that's what it is for React Portal, so that you can actually use Portal. And I think Portal is a mixture of shadow DOM and um, and server side rendering kind of technique, like lazy loading, is based on
Sick.
my very preliminary reading. Is what it is. But basically, the idea for now is with Svelte, we are mounting it on this div with the ID underscore underscore Plasmo to align it with all our other framework, make it consistent.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. So yeah, two breaking changes. Um, but I think they're valuable changes. All right, for 50 extensions, I actually want to show you guys something cool before we actually get started. So, what's up, everyone? We have a bunch of people in here. So, if you guys want to see something cool, um, we have this thing called lenses. So, we're going to launch this very soon. It's basically in a decently ready state. So that's why I can show it out. But let me go into my Twitter. Um, and right now it's all blurry, right? Why is that? It's because it actually is an extension we built that can replace all your tweets on the timeline with whatever emotion that you're feeling. So over here, I made all my tweets sound like an anime villain. So if you look here, we see this is the tweet, but if I look at the original, it's actually like different. And then if I make it loving, it will make my tweets, all my tweets on my feed sound like they're loving. But like I'm not into loving, right? I want to make all my tweets angry, so I can change it to angry, and then it will make all the tweets on my timeline sound like they were written by a very angry person. Um, so here's like an example of that. But yeah, I don't know. Angry doesn't suit me very well. Let me make them happy. So I'll make them happy, and then now we see like, woohoo! Let's get this review done. A lot of woohoos, but that's the basic idea. Yay, and so on. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is part of our goal to actually build 50 extensions like this one. This was built by us. Um, we want to we want to release 50 of these kinds of extensions by March 31st. So that's kind of our goal. And we'll add more stuff like, honestly, one of the things. So I'm a huge fan of MMA, watching UFC a lot. And um, I always watch it the day after it came out. And I hate spoilers. So I want to build another extension using Plasmo that actually hides spoilers from everything on the internet. Like if I'm on YouTube, if it notices that there is a YouTube video announcing the winner of the previous like event, it's just not going to show that to me on my recommendation. All the tweets aren't going to show like those things. Like if I'm watching a TV show and like I'm not all the way caught up, it's going to hide all the spoilers for me and stuff like that. So that's like another thing that we're building. But yeah, we have a lot of extensions that we're building out. So it should be fun. Um, but like actually talking about this a little bit, we're a bit behind. Unfortunately, like with the 50 extensions, so we really gotta kind of get faster. And one of the things that we found is like now that we have a kind of good understanding of kind of how Twitter works and stuff like that, we actually want to build a little SDK so that we can easily say like um, add this React component onto the right sidebar, and it will just do that. Or we want to say add this React component into like here where like the time is, or add this React component to blur or do whatever you want to overlay on top of a tweet, and automatically update and stuff like that, and it will do that. So that's kind of like the idea that we have. I think it's gonna improve our speed a lot. So we're gonna invest some time into that. Um, and it should be good. But yeah, like that's one of them, and the other one, so like we want to take two lenses. One of them is we want to make like really cool AI extensions like this one that do interesting stuff, um, and then the other one is like we want to build internal extensions, um, and next week we'll show you guys a really cool one for Firebase. It's not ready yet. We're about like 90% of the way there. But that should be a fun one. Like Firebase is so hard to kind of we had an issue before where we wanted to like kind of really dig deep and investigate some stuff that was going on in our like prod Firebase instance, and it was really hard to explore. So we're building a extension to make it easier to explore Firebase. Louis, do you want to like talk a little bit, like maybe like a little spoiler, like sneak peek for next week?
Yeah. Um, Before that, maybe we should address some of the comment on the comment section. Should we?
Yeah, yeah, sure, here, let's do it. You there?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here. No, no, I'm. Oh, by the way, can you read out the comment or should I read it out? I can
Yeah,
read
yeah,
it out
sure.
too.
I'll do it. So yeah, people are saying what's up, doing great. Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. Um, one of the questions we have is how with two W's is the IDE support on Svelte?
Yeah. So from busking 00, so the IDE support on Svelte it's pretty good on VS Code. I'm not gonna lie. You need an extension. There's a Svelte extension. The same with Vue extension too, right? So it's not built in. It's not like built-in support into VS Code. But I would say VS Code support for Svelte with the extension, the Svelte extension, directly come from the Svelte team itself, are pretty good. I would say it can autocomplete. It basically proxying all the language server into the same Svelte file, right? Basically. So like for any TS code block, it would then use the TypeScript language server. For CSS code block, it would use CSS. For like what is it? It would for HTML, it would use HTML. And it can do like a little bit of auto completion on the template side as well. I think code refactoring. Um, I think the code refactoring is still a bit flaky between template and the type and the type between the template and the JavaScript. I mean the TypeScript. Uh, so for example, if you have a variable on the logic code side on the TypeScript code, and you have template down there consuming that uh, variable, sometimes the refactoring feature to rename the variable doesn't work sometimes. But it worked um, it worked 99% of the time, so I would say it's pretty solid. Yeah.
Sick. Yeah, no, I've never used Svelte before, but I know that they invest a lot in making the developer experience amazing. So um, I'm like very confident, even though I've never coded in Svelte, that um, that extension and the VS Code experience is probably really nice. Um, awesome. Okay, cool. So
Yeah, regarding
going was that
what
going back
I
to
think,
the chat?
yeah. So in terms of the he was talking about like he was saying I'm dev not a dev, but he want to be a computer science major, but never got to the degree, and so it's not just a hobby. I'll say that actually one of the I'll say one of the best thing if you want to learn more about the web or developing for the web is to actually build a browser extension. It actually forces you to learn a lot about the browser itself, which is crucial to actually make a website. You learn a lot about the actual lower level how the browser works. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like Virtu Nick as said as a non-dev, Svelte is a great language. So like that idea is like very prevalent in the Svelte community. Um, I don't know if you guys saw, but there's this YouTube video which is a Svelte documentary. It's talking about how Svelte was kind of made and all this stuff, and I think, at least from what I remember, Svelte was made because like some people in I think it was New York Times or something like that, in the data journalism kind of space, wanted an easier way to build interactive websites and stuff like that for visualizing data. So it's very much built with that in mind of like you don't have to be some like crazy experienced dev who knows everything to get started. Svelte is like very very simple and like kind of built with that mentality in mind. So that's why it's really really cool.
Yeah. I would say Svelte itself is not really a language. It's kind of a mixture between a bunch of available language, right? TypeScript. It's literally just JavaScript to be honest, with some custom template binding with the template, like with HTML, right? But at its core, Svelte is just JavaScript. Uh,
So it doesn't it compile to something?
it's compiled to raw, yeah, just compile straight up to JavaScript runtime code.
Yeah. Yeah, so actually, so it's like Svelte doesn't have its own runtime, which is what makes it so fast.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that's
precisely.
why it's
Well,
so cool.
it still has. I would argue it still has a little bit runtime, right? It just bypass a bunch of the rendering for sure. Yeah, it bypass a bunch of rendering because it actually orchestrate both the template and and the runtime code so that it can be as fast as possible, right? So it can actually statically rendering stuff if needed. But then for dynamic stuff and like mounting stuff and for logic stuff, somewhat the same, to be honest. But yeah, there's no like because Svelte orchestrate both the template and the logic. It can actually optimize the the final template to reduce to reduce the mounting overhead as much as possible. So it only mount when needed, basically, right? I mean, basically, if you want to show in high component, it will still do some kind of, you know, like DOM mounting, right, so on and so forth. But otherwise, yeah, that's I think that's the power of Svelte is it now can influence the static runtime of the HTML, not just the dynamic runtime.
Yeah, I think the reason for that is because like the creator of Svelte, what's his name? Do you remember?
Rich or something, rich,
Yeah,
right?
Rich. Yeah, I think Rich. Yeah, Rich Harris.
Yeah,
Um,
Rich Harris.
I think he's very into compilers, and I think that's why. Um, I think he really invested in building something that kind of like statically compiles the exact like I know what you mean when you say it's not it has like a little bit of a runtime overhead. I think the main point though is instead of coming with all these bells and whistles, it will create the exact runtime that you need, right? Like it's going to look at your code and compile the exact like things that like bells and whistles you specifically need rather than this like big like React runtime or something like that.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, I think the one key problem with React, right, is the runtime overhead of the
yeah.
whole JavaScript engine. No, but the thing is, it come with the power though. It abstract a lot of the it abstract a lot of the like of the templating into the logic side, and you can see people abusing it heavily, and actually making the web a little bit more dynamic in a sense. Yeah.
So speaking of runtime, one of the big issues that we had in the Plasmo framework that we uncovered after some people told us about it, and also building the 50 extensions, was hot module replacement on tab pages.
Hmm.
So if you were building a tab page with Plasmo, the if you were to save your file, it actually wouldn't refresh. It was kind of annoying. You would have to do it manually, like the olden days before Plasmo existed. So that was a big issue, and we fixed it. We actually fixed it in the same place we actually made these breaking changes. So
Yep.
those two things are bundled together. Um, so the big issue happened because the root render mechanism it just wasn't working properly for the page runtime. But now with the fix that we talked about before, that all works, which is awesome.
Yep. I thought
Um,
let's go back to the conversation before we move to the chat. Like, I mean, I'm talking about like at the time when there was a question about the spoiler for the Firebase, right? The
oh yeah,
spoiler
that's
for
right.
the Firebase extension. So talking about the Firebase extension, so one thing that Firebase doesn't show you on their authentication dashboard is the custom claim. So if you have some kind of multi-tenant kind of strategy for your Firebase application, which we do on our platform, um, we Firebase will not show you this custom claim on their dashboards. So, well, the thing is that we kind of want to, but these custom claim are very important to segment your tenant and to know who your customer are, because it actually is the determining factor for the account, right, to be on certain tier or certain kind of privilege within your platform. So we created our extension at the moment actually allow us, right? It's for internal usage, allow us to inspect each user in our Firebase dashboard and see their custom claim and actually tweak them as we need to. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to show you guys that next week. The big thing that we're trying to push for there is like this idea. I think a lot of people are sleeping on this idea. Like when you think of Chrome extensions, you think of like let's say AdBlock. Right here I have Grammarly installed. You might see like sometimes it complains like the document, like no Grammarly, it's document.body, it's JavaScript, it's not English. Like learn about that. But yeah, like people think about these things, these kinds of extensions. Honey is a big example, and if you ever worked at a big company, um, like like a very large company, multinational company, and you start your job, you'll see that there are maybe like two or three or even more custom internal Chrome extensions that you might have on your Chrome browser that you won't see anywhere else. And these are made in house, or they're made kind of like by an MDM, like mobile device management provider or something like that. And these extensions will do things like replace your new tab page with your custom like calendar that you have from your company, and maybe it'll show like your tasks that you need to do that day and stuff like that. There might be security extensions that like block certain websites or like scan your files before you actually download. There's all these kinds of internal extensions, and the big thing that we want to kind of and the issue is they're always behind this like kind of wall that is the company. Like the companies aren't really public about these. And what we want to do with Plasmo is like as a part of this like 50 extensions kind of like project, we actually want to highlight that these extensions can be really powerful, and we want to release them out to the world that isn't just contained within a certain company. So like if you want an extension where you're working in a company that has maybe 100 people, you're not going to invest time to build an extension that can help people report suspicious websites, right? That's you have other things to worry about. So let Plasmo create that extension, and then you can use it in your company. This Firebase stuff, right? If you're a startup and you're building stuff in Firebase, like, yeah, sure, you can build this extension, but it's going to take time. So we want to actually build this out. Other companies probably have these extensions, like these big companies, but a lot of companies don't. So we just want to kind of democratize that and give those kind of internal extensions out to the world to see how powerful internal extensions are on top of all these cool external extensions as well. So next week, you guys stick around. Next Wednesday, we'll be talking about the Firebase one, and that one's going to be really cool. I think you guys will like that a lot, especially if you're using Firebase. So
I have
that
a
should be
question.
good.
What do you think? What do you think is the reason why a lot of companies are very secret, very being secretive, secretive? How do you pronounce the word?
Yeah, secretive.
Secretive about this internal extension.
So I don't think it's a matter of like them intentionally being secretive. I think it's there is a lot of internal software that just never gets talked about, like internal tools and things like that. And that's just because there's no need to talk about it. Like potentially if you do something really cool, um, like let's say you have this like data analytics pipeline in your internal in your company, and you built this little tool that like makes it super easy to do queries and stuff like that. Um, like there's only one reason why, well, two, I guess, why you would want to kind of put it out in the world. Most of the time is recruiting. When you build something cool, you'll put it in a company. That company will write a blog post about it. They might open source it and stuff like that. For the most part, it's because they want to show the world how awesome it is to work at the company, because they have all this amazing internal tooling. And then people are like, oh wow, that's really cool, I would love to work at that company. um, and then I think that's kind of like the big reason those things get published. And then the other one is like someone's really into kind of open source software, and then they open source these things, but that's much more rare. I think those are kind of the two big ones. Like, what do you think?
I think that a lot of time this extension because they built internally and adhere to the workflow within that company, right? A lot of time it is not very easily translatable to outside world. A lot of time a certain process, for example, within either Facebook or LinkedIn, they might have each of them might have a different procurement process for new business development, right? Or maybe new press coverage, or maybe even something like that, right? I can imagine each of them might have a slightly different um, process, even different department, different team, right? So I think that the power extension, though, beside the fact that you can integrate with the web, you can actually integrating with internal infrastructure with like backend API that tailor to their company, right? So a lot of time that is not very easily translatable to another company, though, right? Because one company would have much different organization structure, much different kind of maybe even email client, email structure, much different kind of stack of software that they use, right, to store the internal data.
Yeah,
The range of SaaS they use to manage their own kind of infrastructure in general, right? That if some of the internal like I would say yeah, there are internal extensions that easily can be applied, right? Like if it's just a kind of a front facing kind of extension that help the the data entry or data cleaning or something that's not company specific, or I mean it is company specific, but the workflow is not tied to the company internal data, then it can be very easily pub- can be very easily be generalized and published to the world. But imagine if an extension that tie very well, very very tightly with their I don't know data model, right? It will be very very hard for them to kind of pull away or refactor the whole thing to make it available, because if they do that, there's a risk that it might also expose their internal infrastructure, right?
yeah. No, so there are like countless examples where someone left their big tech job,
Mm-hmm.
um, and was on a team that developed an internal tool, and then took those concepts that they learned while building that internal tool that was wildly successful internally and turned it into a startup.
Yeah.
This has happened a lot at companies like Facebook. I know that for a fact, where like people that were on the original teams for a lot of the tools that Facebook has, they built like billion-dollar companies just by like putting that tool and making it a SaaS product. Um, so that is totally a thing. Um, and with that comes the same stuff that you were talking about, like you need to have something, you need to have a way to kind of abstract and generalize, and you need to take those principles, but then you need to apply them to like the rest of the world, and make sure that like you're not being, because like a lot of times also these companies do things in a weird way too, right? And you need to
Yep.
like account for that and make sure that you don't do it that way for everyone. Yeah. But yeah, so that should be good. All right, well, going back to kind of like the Plasmo framework and stuff. Good morning,
Good
hey
morning.
everyone. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for tuning in. Um, but yeah, so we just talked about HMR. That's fixed. Storage library has a improvement. It's not a big one, but it's one that actually Rink. Shout out to Rink. He actually messaged us about this. Community member on Plasmo. The storage library didn't have a clear function. You would have to do it manually, kind of annoying. So we have a clear function now. When you run clear, what it will do is it will actually take that um, storage like mode that you're in and actually clear everything out of it. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. That's already done. Um, the next thing that is exciting is a guide. So this is the guide. It's three small letters, but I'm sure everyone can read it here. So to migrate to Plasma. No, just kidding. The guide is here. It's in our docs. So if you go to docs, and likely it will look something like this. If you click on quick starts and then you look at migrate to Plasmo, you'll see migrate to Plasmo framework here. Um, we built this because, okay, so in the beginning, um, yeah, thanks, Elon. By the way, I think all of the Twitter API is completely like not working anymore. So like this that tells us how many followers we have no longer works. So we'll need to fix that. But anyways, going back to what I was talking about, we when we built Plasmo, we built it with one specific kind of like developer in mind. Someone that has used React before and is a React developer, and they want to build a browser extension, a Chrome extension, the first time we ever built Plasmo. That was the idea. That was kind of like, okay, we want to build an amazing product for that specific type of person. And we built something for that with the Plasma framework, and then we kind of expanded from there. We added Vue, we added Svelte, and we kept building more and more things on top of that. And Plasma has grown a lot now, and we're no longer thinking about it in that way where like the person that we're building for is this archetype. And instead, we're thinking more holistically, like they could be a Svelte or Vue developer. They could be someone that hasn't used a lot of these frameworks before, things like that. And then now we're kind of at a point where we're like, okay, that makes sense, but now we want to kind of like add more archetypes into where who wants to use Plasmo. And the big one is a Chrome extension or browser extension developer who already has an extension and now they want to migrate over to the Plasmo framework. And because we're thinking of including them as well into the Plasmo framework, the biggest thing that we could do in that case is to actually build a guide on how to migrate over. So over here, we talk about like, when you're a traditional non-Plasmo extension developer, you have to care about this file called the manifest JSON. At Plasmo, we hate manifest JSON. Um, we never want to think about it. But and I never thought that it would be in our docs, but here it is. And we kind of talk about, you know, a lot of times you look at these things, icons, action, browser extensions. If you're a Chrome extension developer, like without Plasmo, these are the stuff that you're familiar with. And what we did here was we took those familiar items and we show you kind of what the Plasmo equivalent is. So in this case, like in the old times, you had to declare the icons imperatively, like you had to specify all the file names and everything. Super annoying. With Plasmo, it's automatically generated, and so on and so forth. So we have a guide on like, if you want to know how this works, check out this. If you want to know how this works, check out this, and so on and so forth. So, and then we offer like some context. So that's like a really, really good thing. And then we kind of talk about how you don't have to mount all your components anymore. This is how you would do it in the olden days, and then this is how you do it with Plasmo. You can add CSS files and so on and so forth. How you would add custom pages, and yeah, we just go run down the list of literally everything you can do in a browser extension, and we tell you how to do it with Plasmo. So if you've already built a browser extension and you're looking for kind of how can I take this browser extension that doesn't have live reloading, or maybe it does, but it's kind of flaky, or how can I make my messaging like way better and more abstracted? How can I like mount my React component without having to worry about like CSS, like name spacing issues and style leakage? Take a look at this quick start because it's a really good way to just figure out rather than reading all the documentation and figuring everything out. You can just take a look at this one file and it'll tell you exactly what you need to know in terms of migrating over to the Plasmo framework. So yeah, that's a really good resource here.
Yeah. You know what? As we go through this, I wonder if we should have a subtitle for each section that's say before and after.
Yeah, so we kind of do that. It's just not a subtitle,
Yeah.
but we can totally add it, right? Like before,
Yeah, like after.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah,
And so on the
and
sidebar, they can see it too.
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and we can, I think, like what can be really powerful is just to see that difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at all this stuff that you have to do. Like, why do you have to do that? There's no need, just
Mm-hmm.
do this. That's it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that shows the power of Plasma. But yeah, definitely. Um, cool. So we have that, and then finally, some framework improvements, and the biggest one is Plasma in it with a local template. Lewis, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So for the this actually was made for Sandler. Oh, by the way, Sandler is our code name for the 50 extension project. Um, and so we made that for Sandler because within Sandler, um, we
So
do
you want to
want.
talk about like what the feature is? Like,
Okay, so the
what does this do?
yeah, so the feature allow you to clone a local template into a new extension project, basically within. So the path to file will become your new extension with all the naming and metadata set up in within the extension kind of the extension flow.
So what's an example of of a template?
Any kind of with with example. So we have the examples directory, right? The example submodule that we have. So any of those are template that you can actually use with the dash dash with example name flag, right?
So
But
if I'm looking to create an extension template, I will actually create like the structure like this. So it will be in a directory, and
yeah,
then I would name it a certain template, and I might have some things inside and stuff like that. Um, and it will basically copy this directory over when building, right?
precise to a new project, yeah.
Got it.
And this is very useful when you have a monorepo project like Sandler that allow you to share theme, right? Because the thing is, a lot of the example we have, they are very, they are like small little example, right? That doesn't really share much, component between themselves because we want to be we want each of these examples to be self-contained. But with Sandler, to actually make it the extension, we want to share a lot of components and share a lot of core logic, right? For example, like theming and like theme toggling and button toggle, right? All of those kind of elements, share them because we need to move fast and building 50 extension is not going to be easy if we cannot share, if we have to like repeatedly copy and paste a bunch of this stuff. So being able to share component is somewhat crucial to build fast, in my opinion. And so, but because of that, right, the setup is very, very nuanced. The setup to actually share component become somewhat nuanced, somewhat specific to that mono repo, right? And so this feature was needed for so that we can actually clone the template, the local template associated with Sandler that link all the theme within Sandler only, right? Because only Sandler has a theme, has a component. We don't have that anywhere else.
Got it. So one of the use cases is if you have a mono repo with a bunch of extensions and you want to share certain themes, what kind of other use cases could people use this for?
You can use it to also. I mean, if you yourself has because the template path could also be absolute, right? You can specify an absolute path. So in the cases where you have, for example, you have a company, right? You have a company that you try a Plasmo and you found your dream setup, and now you want to clone the setup to build out more more extension, right? Maybe you might have a white label services to build out. Maybe you are contracting a contractor who builds out white label or who clone your white label extension into for other people businesses. Then you will set up a template and clone it with this feature.
So
Yeah.
there are some people that have made certain kind of templates, like for example, GPT-3 Chrome Starter.
Yeah.
This is from Promptable.
Hmm.
Shout out to promptable.ai. So they created this like little starter where if you want to build stuff with GPT-3, you can use this template. Um, and so if you clone this locally, you can use this feature, kind of like what you're talking about, right, Lewis? Like
Hmm.
um, if you want to use this GPT-3 Chrome starter, you can point this template to where you cloned this repo, and then you will automatically get started with a GPT-3 Chrome starter.
Yeah. We should make a with OpenAI example, huh?
Yeah, no, definitely. But like the big thing here, right, is like if you have a white label kind of like extension template, that has all these like bells and whistles for a specific use case, like for example here GPT-3, or potentially like there's other people that have also built similar kinds of like for example web extension kit based on Plasmo. So over here they have like different things that they've built in, like if you want to have like a super base with the options page in here, you can have like a bunch of other stuff. So like this person took Plasmo and then built on top of it. Like the idea in our mind with Plasmo is we want to make it so that it's super easy to build extensions. But people have extended Plasmo, and you can see that here, and it's really cool. And if you want to use these, or if someone like let's say, I mean, this is like a cool like kind of business opportunity as well, right? Because as you said, Lewis, you can take this and then white label it and then sell it to, like, let's say you build one for internal extensions, right? And you can sell it to companies, be like, hey, I have this template here, sell it. I want to sell it to you. You can use it internally, pay me, and then that company can also use like this like little template feature to init all their extensions. If you have a design system, like that's what you were talking about before, you can use this template. So it's like a really, really powerful. It's a very simple feature, but it's very powerful in what it can do.
Yep, yep. I would
Cool.
say that
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
mindset I have when I was building out the template feature, it's not quite. I'm not too worried about like because a lot of this template you can clone them right on Git. The one thing that I would worry that the one use case, the key use case is still the mono repo or the local template, the one that you don't want to share with other people, right? You know, yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of
So
time, for example, if you have your company infrastructure, right, or you might have you might have like a setup where sure, um, you have internal company kind of data model, right, within the extension. You wouldn't want to share that publicly, to be honest. Then you would want to use this kind of feature. Yeah.
right. So what's the difference between like having a private GitHub repo and like using this template feature?
I would say with GitHub private repo, you still have to push the code. With this template feature, is all local.
Okay. Um, so what you're saying here is like this template feature is like if you have something locally on your machine, you can use this template feature.
Yeah, I mean, there's a main use case that I would design it for.
So if that's the case, like if they already have that, why couldn't they just copy that directory over?
If they already have
Like
that,
if they have path to file and that's like a directory,
yeah,
why can't they do like cp-r path to
and then they
file?
would have to go and rename the package JSON, adding all the version, all the name, and making sure that you
Right.
not copy the git.git. So it does a lot of
So
nuanced stuff, right? It's nice to
wouldn't
have
that be
stuff.
the case? So like when they're cloning GPT-3 Chrome Starter, they would do that as well, right?
No, right? Because the git ignore handles some of that nuance for them, right? Git ignore the node module folder, ignore the .git folder, ignore some of the file that they don't want to include, right? env5, for example, right? Exact same idea for this is that when you copy a new folder, a template to another place, right? You might want to have add some example code, or maybe there's the .git and also the node module folder in there. So it does some of that stuff. It handled node module, it it globbed through all the ignore file to ensure that it doesn't copy useless stuff over.
Right.
It
So
will also install the extent, installing the dependency and so on, right? But the key usage actually when you also have like internal package, right? So you can push to Git, but especially for monorepo, um, if a template inside monorepo, it's very likely your template would rely on a workspace project, right? And this workspace project, um, it might not be very convenient to add them as a GitHub repo though, because you would have to use some module for that, which is a pain in the ass of sometimes.
so basically the two big use cases here. Um, hey, how's it going, Stefano XCR? Um, happy day to you too. Um, right now it's a bit cloudy where I'm at.
It's very
Probably
sunny
really
where I
sunny
live.
where probably very sunny where Lewis is. That's the unfortunate circumstance of where we of our location in which we live. Well, unfortunate for me, not so unfortunate for him, but it is what it is. I got used to it. When the sun comes, I literally like go right by my window and I don't move. I'm just like, please give me as much vitamin D as you can. But anyways, back to this. So I would say like Plasma in a template. Um, it's useful for internal extension templates, kind of what you talked about. Like if you have a design system for an extension or you have a mono repo and you don't necessarily want to like ship everything out to Git, that makes sense. The other thing I see it useful for is also like that white label kind of extension idea that we were talking about. Um, Obviously, like node modules not copied over is useful for this case, but I think like the package JSON thing is huge, right? There's so many times where I do like a cp-r and then I'm like, okay, now I have to like find every instance where I have to change things and I have to like think about that. But now with this template feature, I don't have to think about that anymore. Plasmo thinks about it for me, and that's kind of like amazing power that we have for when it comes to like abstracting things away with Plasmo. Is that when you do Plasma init template, it will take this directory and figure out exactly what needs to be changed, like the package JSON name, like this the display name, all the other things like the description. It will ask you kind of like what do you want this to be, and then you can specify it and not have to worry about like having to change those things. So like if you're using GPT-3 Chrome Starter instead of cp-r GPT Chrome Starter, okay, let me look at the package JSON, let me change the name, let me change the display name, a description, it's author, like it's very like basic stuff, but it's like mental overhead. You don't have to worry about that now with template because that just takes care of that for you. um and yeah, it's like super amazing. And maybe like you've done pmpmi on this locally, so now you have a node modules folder and you're like, okay, dang, like I'll have to like cp, like I'll have to go on chat gpt, right? How do I copy a directory and exclude the node modules directory and all this stuff? You don't have to worry about that anymore. We have template. um, and then that all takes care of that. And I think like what might be interesting, Lewis, is like for next stream, it would be really cool to see this in action with Sandler, which is our internal Chrome extension stuff, and just really see kind of how powerful it can be for a mono repo and just kind of contextualize that, because right now we're sort of talking about it in a very abstract sense. The next stream, it'll be really cool to see this in action and see exactly how powerful this kind of feature is for mono repo people.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that was pretty much what we have for this week. We're running at about an hour and 3 minutes. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. I think that was a really, really good stream. And shout out to TD for bringing a lot of people over. I wanted to say um, thanks for the support. And yeah, that's pretty much it on my end. Lewis, you got anything else?
Yeah. As always. Sounds good. And yep. Have you too, TD.
Hell yeah. TD is the best. That's true.
Yeah, he is the
And
best. That's true.
what I was going to say, if you guys want to tune in, we do this every Wednesday around this time, sometimes 1 hour later, sometimes like 2 hours later, but usually at around this time. If you're on our Discord, we post on there. We like spam everyone with ad here and stuff. So um, just if you want to see the stream for next week, we're going to be talking about some cool Firebase stuff, probably a bunch more like 50 extension stuff, and we're also going to completely redesign Itero. So that's kind of our extension product suite. So it should be a good one. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yes,
Take care.
sir. Take care.